I should have known something was wrong when Marcus started smiling at me again. After 15 years of marriage, you learn to read the signs. The way his jaw tightened when I spoke. The deliberate politeness that replaced actual affection. But that smile, forced and rehearsed, should have been my warning. We lived in Maplewood Estates, one of those neighborhoods where everyone knew everyone's business but pretended they didn't. White picket fences, manicured lawns, block parties where we'd all stand around grilling meat and discussing property values. Marcus was the golden boy of our street, successful corporate lawyer, charming, always ready with a joke at the HLA meetings. Meanwhile, I was just Emily, the wife who worked from home as a freelance graphic designer, the woman who waved from the window but rarely joined the neighborhood coffee collections. I didn't know he'd been planting seeds for months. It started subtly. Marcus would mention to our neighbor Tom that I'd been stressed lately. He'd tell Sandra across the street that I'd been forgetting things. To the Hendersons, he'd shake his head sadly and say I'd been acting paranoid. I didn't hear these conversations. I was oblivious, working in my home office, meeting deadlines, occasionally bringing Marcus's favorite coffee when he worked late, playing the dutiful wife. But the neighborhood was listening. They were watching. And when you're told repeatedly that someone is unstable, you start seeing evidence everywhere, even where none exists. The day I realized something was happening, I was at the mailbox. Sandra walked past without her usual greeting, just a tight-smiled nod. When I waved at the Hendersons' teenage daughter, she hurried inside. Even old Mrs. Chun, who always stopped to chat about her roses, suddenly had somewhere urgent to be. I felt it, that invisible wall going up between me and everyone else. "You're imagining things," Marcus said that evening when I mentioned how strange people were acting. He didn't look up from his phone. "Maybe you're just stressed. Have you been taking your vitamins?" I wasn't taking any vitamins. I'd never taken vitamins regularly. But the way he said it made me question myself. "I'm not stressed," I insisted. "Emily." He finally looked at me, and his expression was pure manufactured concern. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You get defensive over nothing. Maybe you should talk to someone. A therapist. It might help." He returned to his phone. "Just a thought." That night, I lay awake, replaying every interaction I'd had that week, searching for evidence of my own instability. Finding none, but still wondering if I was missing something obvious. That's what gaslighting does. It makes you doubt your own sanity. 2 weeks later, Marcus announced we were hosting a neighborhood barbecue. "It'll be good for you," he said. "Get you out of your head." I should have been suspicious. Marcus hated hosting, but I was desperate to reconnect with our neighbors, to prove I was normal, stable, friendly. I spent 2 days preparing. Marinade for the chicken, homemade potato salad, fresh flowers for the tables. I wanted everything perfect. The guests arrived right on time. Tom and Lisa, the Hendersons, Sandra and her husband Mike, the Chens, and 3 other couples from our street. They came with polite smiles and careful distance, like they were visiting someone in a hospital. Marcus was the ultimate host, charming and attentive to everyone, except me. Every time I tried to join a conversation, I'd notice him watching with that slight head tilt. The one that said, "See what I mean?" It happened near the end of the evening. I was in the kitchen refilling the water pitcher when I heard Marcus's voice rising in the backyard. Concerned, I walked out to find him backed against the grill, hands raised. "Emily, calm down," he was saying loudly. I froze. "What?" I said I couldn't drive you to your mother's tomorrow, that's all. There's no need to get violent. Violent? I was 10 feet away from him, holding a glass pitcher. But everyone was staring at me now. I saw fear in their eyes. Judgment. I'm not, I stammered. "Maybe everyone should go," Marcus said, his voice shaking. "I'm sorry, folks. She gets like this sometimes." They fled. Every single one of them gathered their things and left, throwing concerned glances at Marcus and wary ones at me. Sandra squeezed his shoulder sympathetically on her way out. I stood there, pitcher in hand, utterly bewildered. "What the hell was that?" I demanded when everyone had gone. Marcus started cleaning up, whistling softly. "What was what? You made it look like I was threatening you. Emily, you were standing there with a pitcher, getting upset about your mother. People saw what they saw." He shrugged. "Maybe you don't remember it the way it happened. "You've been off lately." I wanted to throw the picture then. Almost did. But I realized that's exactly what he wanted. Evidence. Witnesses had just left believing I was unstable. Any aggressive action now would confirm it. So I set the picture down carefully and went to bed. I didn't sleep. Instead, I lay there, finally understanding. This wasn't random. This was calculated. Marcus was building a narrative, and I was the villain in the story. But why? The answer came 3 days later when Marcus left his laptop open. He'd gone for his morning run, a new habit he'd picked up 6 months ago, along with the expensive cologne and the upgraded wardrobe. I wasn't snooping. At least, that's what I told myself as I walked past his desk and saw the email notification on the screen. "Can't wait for this to be over, baby. Then we can finally be together. Love you." My hands went numb. I clicked through his emails with shaking fingers, finding months of correspondence with someone named Alexis, a paralegal at his firm, 26 years old. Their messages were explicit, romantic, and damning. But worse were the emails to his lawyer, his divorce lawyer. They were building a case. Wife displaying increasingly erratic behavior, concerns for my safety, documenting incidents, pursuing full custody of assets on grounds of mental instability. We didn't have kids. This was about money, about making sure I got nothing in the divorce, while he played the sympathetic husband of an unstable woman. I closed the laptop carefully, returned everything exactly as it was, and went to my office. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type, but I managed to send myself screenshots from my phone of his email threads. Then I sat back and thought, I could confront him, but I'd just look crazy, the paranoid wife checking his emails. I could tell the neighbors, but they already thought I was unstable. I could file for divorce first, but he had lawyers, documentation, witness testimony about my behavior. I needed evidence. Real, undeniable evidence that I wasn't the crazy one. That's when I remembered something. After the barbecue incident, Sandra had mentioned calling the police non-emergency line just to document concerns. Marcus had talked her out of it, saying he didn't want to embarrass me. But what if next time someone did call? What if there was an official record of what actually happened? Not Marcus's version, but the truth. I just needed to create the right situation. I started playing the part Marcus wanted. I became the unstable wife. Not too much. I wasn't going to actually damage my reputation, but enough to make him confident. I forgot to pick up his dry cleaning. I got confused about dinner plans. I asked him the same question twice in one conversation. Little things that fed his narrative. Marcus ate it up. I could see the satisfaction in his eyes. He started documenting everything, making notes on his phone, sighing loudly when I made mistakes. Meanwhile, I was documenting too. Every conversation, every manipulative comment. I bought a small voice-activated recorder and kept it in my pocket. I backed up all my files to a cloud server he didn't know about. And I waited for the right moment. It came 2 weeks later. Marcus announced he was going to the gym but would be home by 8. I knew from his emails that meant he'd be with Alexis at her apartment until at least 9:30. At 8:15, I called him. He didn't answer. At 8:30, I called again. No answer. At 8:45, I drove to the gym. His car wasn't there. Perfect. I called him again, leaving a message. "Marcus, where are you? You said you'd be home by 8. I'm worried. Please call me." I drove home and waited. He finally answered at 9:10. "Where are you?" I asked, letting my voice tremble. "At the gym, where else?" I drove by the gym. "Your car wasn't there." A pause. I parked around back. "Why are you checking up on me, Emily?" This is exactly the paranoid behavior we talked about. "I'm not paranoid. You said 8. It's past 9. He hung up. Marcus arrived home at 9:45, smelling of perfume that wasn't mine. He immediately went on the offensive. "You're tracking me now? Driving around looking for me? This is insane, Emily. You lied about where you were." "I was at the gym. Just because you're having some kind of episode doesn't mean I have to explain every minute of my day." He was loud, deliberately loud. I knew the neighbors could hear through the open windows. "Stop yelling at me," I said, keeping my voice level. "I'm not yelling." "God, you always do this. You create drama and then play the victim." He grabbed his keys off the counter, making him jangle. I'm leaving before this gets worse. Marcus, wait! He walked to the front door and yanked it open. Several neighbors were outside. They'd been drawn by the noise. Sandra and Mike stood on their lawn. Tom was getting his mail, moving slowly to watch. I need some air, Marcus announced to them, his voice breaking. I can't. I just need some space. He drove off, leaving me standing in the doorway with an audience of concerned neighbors. Sandra approached me slowly, like I was a spooked animal. Emily, honey, are you okay? I'm fine. Marcus and I just had a disagreement. We heard yelling. It sounded intense. He was the one yelling, I said, but I could see she didn't believe me. Tom walked over, hands in his pockets. Listen, Emily, we're all worried about you. Marcus mentioned you've been struggling lately. There's no shame in getting help. Getting help. They all thought I was the problem. I don't need help. I need my husband to stop lying to me. Sandra and Tom exchanged a look. The kind of look that said, see? Paranoid. Just like he said. Maybe you should go inside and rest, Sandra suggested gently. I did, but only because my plan required patience. Marcus didn't come home that night. He sent a text at 11 p.m., staying at a hotel. Need space. Please don't contact me. The next morning, I called his office. His secretary said he'd taken a personal day. I knew where he was, with Alexis. I waited until evening, then I called him. 20 times. I left messages. I sent texts, all of them calm, asking him to come home so we could talk. I knew he was showing these to people, building his case. On the third day, he finally came home. I was sitting in the living room when he walked in. We need to talk, I said. Not now, Emily. I'm tired. You were with her, weren't you? Alexis. His face went blank. I don't know what you're talking about. I saw the emails, Marcus. For 1 second, real emotion crossed his face, panic. Then it was gone, replaced by anger. You went through my private emails? That's a violation of my privacy. This is exactly why I can't trust you. You're spying on me, following me, calling me obsessively. You're out of control. I know what you're doing, I said quietly. You're making me look crazy, so you can leave and take everything. Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. Listen to yourself. You sound paranoid. I'm going to my room. Don't follow me. He went upstairs. I heard the bedroom door lock. I sat there for an hour, thinking. Then I made my move. I went to the kitchen and took out a glass. I held it carefully, then let it slip from my fingers onto the tile floor. It shattered perfectly. Damn it! I yelled. Marcus's door opened. What now? I broke a glass. So clean it up. His voice carried down the stairs, irritated. I waited 5 minutes, then called up again. Marcus, can you help me? I cut myself. You're a grown woman. Emily. Use a Band-Aid. Perfect. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? I made my voice small, frightened. I need help. My husband, we had a fight, and he's locked himself in the bedroom. I'm scared. Are you in immediate danger, man? I don't know. He's been acting strange. We've been fighting a lot. I broke a glass and asked for help, and he just yelled at me. I think something's wrong. It wasn't entirely a lie. Something was wrong, just not what they'd assume. We're sending officers to your location. Are you injured? Just a small cut from the glass. But I'm more worried about Marcus. He's not himself. The dispatcher kept me on the line until I heard the sirens. 2 police officers arrived within 10 minutes. Through the window, I could see neighbors emerging from their houses, drawn by the flashing lights. I answered the door, a small bandage on my hand. Ma'am, you called about a domestic disturbance. I'm sorry for calling. I was just worried. My husband locked himself in our bedroom after we argued, and he won't come out. The officers exchanged glances. Is he armed? No, nothing like that. We've been having problems. Marcus appeared at the top of the stairs, his expression perfectly calibrated, concern mixed with exhaustion. Officers, I'm sorry you were called. My wife has been under a lot of stress lately. Sir, can you come down here, please? Marcus descended the stairs slowly. Of course. But I should tell you, Emily has been having some mental health issues. Our neighbors can confirm. Actually, I interrupted softly, I'd like to show you something. I pulled out my phone. Officers, before you form any conclusions, I want you to know that my husband has been having an affair. He's been systematically destroying my reputation in the neighborhood to make me look unstable, so he can file for divorce and leave me with nothing. Marcus's face went red. This is exactly what I'm talking about. These paranoid delusions. I have his emails, months of correspondence with his mistress, messages to his divorce lawyer discussing strategy, voice recordings of him gaslighting me. It's all backed up in the cloud. One officer held up a hand. Okay, let's all calm down. Ma'am, why did you call us here tonight? Because I needed an official record. Every incident so far has been he said, she said, with him controlling the narrative. But you have body cameras, don't you? Both officers nodded slowly. Good. Then you'll have footage of what really happened here tonight. No manipulation. No performance for neighbors. Just the truth. The officers separated us. One took Marcus outside to the porch. The other stayed with me in the living room. Walk me through what's been happening, the officer said. I told her everything. Calmly, rationally. I showed her the emails, the voice recordings, the documentation I had been keeping. I explained the whisper campaign, the barbecue incident, the escalation. Why didn't you just file for divorce yourself? She asked. Because he has lawyers who've been building a case against me for months. Every neighbor on this street thinks I'm unstable. If I filed first, I'd look like the aggressor. I needed someone objective, someone with no stake in this, to see what's really happening. Through the window, I could see the other officer interviewing Marcus on the porch. Neighbors had gathered at the property line. Sandra was there, and Tom, and at least 6 others. All watching, all recording on their phones. The officer outside called his partner over. They had a quick conversation, then returned inside together. Mr. Holloway, the first officer said, we've reviewed some of the evidence Mrs. Holloway provided. The emails are particularly concerning. Marcus's mask slipped for just a moment. Those are private communications. Sir, we're not here to mediate your marriage, but we are here to make sure everyone is safe and to document what's happening. Mrs. Holloway is correct. This will all be on body camera footage. She manipulated you into coming here. Marcus's voice rose. She broke a glass on purpose, called you with some story. Sir, I need you to lower your voice. I will not. This is my house, and my wife is having a mental breakdown. Ask any of the neighbors. They'll tell you she's been acting crazy for months. The officer's expression hardened. Sir, step outside with me, please. While one officer escorted Marcus outside, the other asked if she could speak with the neighbors. I agreed immediately. I watched through the window as she approached the crowd. Sandra stepped forward first, eager to share her concerns about me. But the officer held up a hand. Ma'am, I need to inform you that this is now part of an official investigation. Everything you say may be relevant to legal proceedings. With that in mind, have you personally witnessed Mrs. Holloway behave in a threatening or unstable manner? Sandra hesitated. Well, not personally witnessed, but Marcus said. What Marcus said isn't testimony. I'm asking what you personally saw. The barbecue, Tom interjected. She was acting aggressive with that pitcher. Did she threaten anyone with it? Did she raise it? Did she make any verbal threats? Silence. She was just standing there, Sandra admitted slowly. But Marcus was backing away from her. Did you consider that maybe Mr. Holloway was creating that impression? That perhaps he wanted you to see his wife in a certain light? I could see the doubt creeping into their faces. The officer interviewed 6 neighbors. Not one could provide concrete evidence of me being unstable. Everything was second-hand information from Marcus. Insinuations, interpretations. When the officer came back inside, her partner was still outside with Marcus, who was now pacing and talking rapidly on his phone, presumably to his lawyer. Mrs. Holloway, I have to say, this is one of the more calculated situations I've encountered. Your husband has been engaging in what we call reputation poisoning. It's a common tactic in contentious divorces. So you believe me? The evidence speaks for itself. The body camera footage from tonight will show a calm, rational woman who was concerned about her husband's behavior. Meanwhile, your husband became increasingly agitated when confronted with evidence of his affair and his manipulation tactics. She paused. However, this is a civil matter, not criminal. We can't arrest anyone for having an affair or for being manipulative. But this footage, combined with your other evidence, should be very helpful in divorce proceedings. The officers left after another hour, but not before providing me with an incident report number and confirming that their body camera footage would be available through a formal request. Marcus stood on the porch, surrounded by neighbors who were now looking at him differently. Sandra had her arms crossed. Tom wouldn't meet his eyes. You all heard her lies, Marcus tried. She's manipulating you. Actually, Sandra said coldly, we heard the police ask what we personally witnessed. And I realized I haven't witnessed anything except you telling stories about your wife. One by one, the neighbors drifted back to their homes. Not to get away from me, to get away from Marcus. He came back inside, his face pale. You've destroyed everything. No, I said calmly. I documented everything. There's a difference. Marcus moved out the next day. He'd already been paying for Alexis's apartment. Now he just moved in there permanently. I filed for divorce within the week, armed with evidence that would make any judge question his credibility. The police body camera footage became the centerpiece of my case. It showed exactly what he was. A man so convinced of his own cleverness that he lost control when confronted. His lawyer tried to argue that I'd manipulated the situation, but the footage didn't lie. I was calm, rational. Meanwhile, Marcus was caught on camera claiming I was having a mental breakdown, then becoming visibly agitated when police didn't immediately take his side. The neighbor's testimony was even more damaging. Under oath, they had to admit they'd never actually seen me do anything concerning. They'd only heard Marcus's interpretations of events. The divorce took 6 months. In the end, the judge awarded me 60% of our marital assets, citing Marcus's deliberate campaign to defame his wife's character in anticipation of divorce proceedings. His affair was exposed at his law firm. Relationships with subordinates violated their ethics policy. He wasn't fired, but he was passed over for partnership. Alexis left him 3 months after he moved in. Apparently, dating a man who'd systematically destroyed his wife's reputation wasn't as romantic as she thought. The neighbors, some apologized, some didn't, but they all learned something about accepting narratives without evidence. Sandra actually became a friend. I'm ashamed I believed him so easily, she told me over coffee. I should have questioned why you never acted the way you said you did when I actually saw you. He's very convincing, I said. That's what made him dangerous. A year after the divorce was finalized, I was featured in a local news story about gaslighting and reputation abuse in relationships. The body camera footage, now public record, went viral. The comments were telling. This is why we need to believe women when they say something's wrong. Look at how calm she is versus how he loses it when caught. That man literally tried to drive her insane. Thank God she documented everything. Marcus tried to sue for defamation, but the truth is an absolute defense. Everything I'd said was backed by evidence, his emails, his messages, the police reports, and yes, that body camera footage. I never sought revenge. I simply exposed the truth and let it do what truth does, illuminate. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I hadn't figured it out. If I'd accepted his narrative. If I'd actually started to believe I was the crazy one. But I didn't. Because the one thing Marcus forgot in his careful planning was this. Gaslighting only works in the dark. Once you shine a light on it, whether through police body cameras or your own meticulous documentation, it falls apart. He called me crazy. The police footage said otherwise. And in the end, that made all the difference. I rebuilt my life, my reputation, and my confidence. I now run a support group for people experiencing similar manipulation in their relationships. I teach them what I learned, document everything. Trust your instincts. And remember that the truth, when properly recorded, is the most powerful weapon you have. Marcus was right about one thing. I wasn't the same woman I was when we met. But I wasn't crazy. I was awake. And that scared him more than anything.